As Congress debates new gun control measures, the Washington Post writes that the NRA is chipping away at support for more restrictions. Even Senate Democrats are finding the powerful gun lobby difficult to resist. Radio show hosts and Fox News contributors Mike Gallagher and Leslie Marshall are here for a fair and balanced debate. Good to see you folks. And Leslie, let's start out with you. Washington Post in a headline yesterday said the NRA is winning the gun control debate. Is it? And is that a bad thing?
Well, I don't think if you look at the polls, the latest 90% of the American people who favor background checks, and when you look at the polls at various states, including the one I'm sitting in, that are moving for, or Connecticut that have already passed tougher gun control measures, that's not what the people are saying. Now, I know in the past, Mike and his buddies kind of got confused as to the GOP constituency versus Grover Norquist being the leader. Now that's out after November. Now it's the NRA. But what I'm perplexed by, John, is I grew up in Massachusetts that for years when I lived there had one of, and continues to have one of the toughest gun control measures, and the NRA remained silent. Connecticut had a weapons ban in place for ages, and the NRA remained silent. This is very political since Newtown. And I think it's horrific because what we as a nation, this shouldn't be about politics. This really should be about where can we agree to make this nation safer for the people and especially our children.
Mike, you want to take that on?
Well, of course. A funny thing happened on the way to Leslie's pals trying to restrict Americans' constitutional right to keep and bear arms. And Leslie, thanks for explaining it. You grew up in Massachusetts. Now it all comes together. Now I get it. But
right.
I'm kidding. But seriously, there is an audio clip I play on my radio show, John, all the time from Rahm Emanuel, President Guru's former guru, and he said, "You never let a crisis go to waste." Right. And he said, "What I mean by that is you always take a crisis and try to turn it into something that you can maybe affect change with that you ordinarily couldn't do it." I think Americans saw right through what the left tried to do with Newtown. Americans were appalled. The Democrats tried to manipulate Americans' emotions into thinking that Newtown is the breakthrough catastrophe that will take away Americans' rights to keep and bear arms. We don't want gun restrictions. One of the mistakes that I think we make, John, and you talked about it in the open about the NRA and the NRA, listen, the gun lobby, the American people or the NRA. The American people is the gun lobby. Americans don't want their Second Amendment tampered with, and Americans hold very, very, very strongly to the belief that we have a right to keep and bear arms. Now, we need a reasonable response to what has happened in places like Newtown and to Gabby Giffords and those who were killed. Nothing that's on the table is reasonable because everybody knows, and Leslie, you'd admit it, none of the restrictions in place today that the Senate is now debating would have stopped Newtown. Not one.
All right, let me jump in here for a second, Mike, and go to this idea of universal background checks, because that appears to be the only thing that may survive in the Senate. It looks like the assault weapons ban is dead. Looks like limiting the size of magazines is dead as well. And I want to come back to that Gabrielle Giffords op-ed that was published at least in the New York Daily News today. She said, quote, "Determination guides me every day. We need to be determined too, determined to pass background checks legislation to make it harder for criminals and the dangerously mentally ill to get deadly weapons in the first place." She is a gun owner. She's not afraid of universal background checks. Why should anyone else be?
Well, I'm not either, John. In fact, I break ranks with a lot of people on my side of the aisle. I understand that. I think that is a reasonable restriction. The problem is a lot of people are frustrated because on the left because they want more. They want to limit how big the magazines are. You got
but we just said, Michael, all of that appears to be dead. And let me go to Leslie here. Leslie, the big worry among gun owners, or at least a lot that I've talked to, is this idea of a federal gun registry. Is there anything in the legislation in Congress that could lead us down that road?
No, because first of all, it's illegal to have a national gun registry. But secondly, we have to look at history and some things that have been done. I want to give you one example. The ATF broke up a massive gun trafficking ring that was going from the state of Virginia to the state of New York. They could not have done that without being able to see who registered the guns, who was selling it, and to whom. We are talking about safety. This is not violating the Second Amendment. You know what? When I go to the airport and they go through my bags, I'm not worried because I'm not a terrorist bringing something bad on the plane.
So, Mike,
when a person goes to a private gun show, when a person is buying a gun at a collector's, show at somebody's home, and as well as a gun show, this is common sense. We want everybody. If you have nothing to hide, why shouldn't we have a background check on these people?
Mike,
and if you want mental illness
Mike,
to be addressed, that has to be addressed.
Okay, 30 seconds. I happen to agree. I think that's a reasonable response, quite frankly. I understand the concerns, but what we don't like is this penchant for a slippery slope. Make no mistake, liberal Democrats are frustrated. They wanted much more. They didn't get it. At the end of the day, the American people have spoken. The demonization of the NRA didn't work. All the empty rhetoric failed, and ultimately we're going to get to keep and bear arms, and that's what the constitutional that's what it's all about.
So, Mike Gallagher, let me ask you for a quick, just a yes or no answer here. So, if Congress comes out with legislation providing for universal background checks with an absolute guarantee that there will be no federal gun registry, could you support that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, Mike Gallagher, Leslie Marshall, thanks for joining us today.
Guys.
We
Take
found
care.
common ground today. How about that?
Thank you.